Well, I have to say that's dedication. I open up the stream here. I'm very, very late, and I've had that thing running on the screen for about 20 minutes, and there's 2 people watching and waiting. Good morning to you all. I'm guessing I know who one of them might be. Greetings and good morning to you all from a nice day here in Cheshire. It's not that sunny, but again, it's not raining, so we cannot complain. So, where are we at? Oh, first of all, apologies for the late start this morning. It's been a good morning in many respects. It's A-level results day today in the UK, where 18-year-olds get the results of their exams, and of course it's been an awful time for them all this last 18 months. Their education has been totally disrupted. But, James, our son, has been off to get his results this morning. He has worked really hard all the way through lockdown. He has been diligently slogging away on his computer at home, morning and afternoon, just as if he was at college. And he deserves everything that he's got. He really does. And he's done very, very, very well. This boy is a maths wizard, so I'd never really had any doubts that he wouldn't do brilliantly, and he's done great. He's done fantastic, and he is off to Warwick University in just over a month's time. So new things happening all the time. Yeah, a new start to his journey, and so that's where we've been. We've been getting his results. So now I'm back. They've all gone out for a coffee, but I thought I'd better come back in here because you'll be waiting for me. And so here we go. Let's have a good look at where we are at with this baby. This, of course, is the photograph that I'm working on. This is a photograph that was sent to me by Karen in Texas, who I imagine might be the one person that I can see that's online at the moment, according to this chat box on the screen that I've got here. If it is indeed, good morning to you, Karen. Karen sent me this photograph, and as you can see, it sets an awful lot of different challenges. And so far, this is where we are at. Where's the... that's the one. This is where we're at. We've got the portrait sort of in, pending revision. Let's put it that way. Because it's impossible to totally judge the portrait and the tones of the portrait and whether you've got it fitting in the painting until you have got the rest of the painting in there, till you've got all the other surrounding tones. And at the moment, I have to say, I'm pleased with the likeness, I'm pleased with the portrait. It actually definitely does look a little bit warmer in real life than it does on my screen here, but I have checked it on my phone and on other devices, and it's coming over warmer than it does on my screen. So I think maybe we're not too bad. I can see already that once I've got the rest of it in, I'm going to have to go down this side of the face and darken it and blend it in with the shadow in the background and let it emerge from the shadow, because we've got a strong light coming from this side. And so we're getting a chiaroscuro effect, and well, we need to get it right, don't we? So that's what I'm going to do. But that can wait, because I am now going to attack the chicken. Oh, that sounds bad. No, I'm not going to attack the chicken. That would be cruel, wouldn't it? But I'm going to do the chicken, so to speak, and get that chicken painted in. And the way I'm going to start it is looking at the actual photograph. Let's pull up the main screen now. Here we go, so you can see the photograph. Looking at the photograph, this area on the photograph is predominantly dark with a few bits of light on the speckles on the feathers coming through. Whereas, and it's the same here. Whereas when we get round the front here, it's probably 50-50, and also the black changes in its nature as it comes around the front. This at the back here, I'm going to be doing like this with dark Payne's grey, because it's a bluey sort of tinge to it. The same down here. Whereas over here, we're going to merge. We're going to graduate from using a dark Payne's grey, and then when we go around the front here, we're going to gradually change to using ivory black in these feathers at the front, which is a more browny sort of black. So that's where we're going to go with it. Round the head, and where it gets quite fine in detail around here, I will probably do that, and down the back here, first of all with the pigment pen, because we can get in there and get those nice sharp lines in there with the pigment pen that we won't get with the watercolour and with the brush in the same way. So let's get going. What I'm going to do for the back here is I'm going, as you probably see me preparing the little pot of masking fluid here for use, and I've got my mapping pen in my hand here, and as you probably guessed, I'm getting ready to apply what's the name? Oh gosh, brain's not working, it's a bit early. I'm getting ready to apply masking fluid to the areas that I want to be white at the end. Of course they won't be totally white at the end of all this. They will, as it are in the picture, be a sort of light bluey grey. But first of all, let's take a good look. I'll use my tablet here to enlarge the chicken on the screen. That's it, I can see it better now. And let's get some masking in. This should do it, I think, justice. I must use my phone in a minute and look up what breed. Good morning to you. You are, I'm guessing by that, you're either in Japan or China, maybe. I'm not sure which. Looks like Japan, maybe. I'm not an expert on foreign languages, but thank you very much. That's very nice of you to call in there and say nice things. I can never get enough of that, I suppose. But I must, at some point, find out what breed this chicken is, because I do know I used to keep chickens back in the 1980s, and I kept this particular breed of chickens, so it's there in the back of my mind somewhere. If you do know, if anybody knows, pop it in the chat. That would be very nice, very useful. Save me looking it up. refresh the latex. It doesn't last long in the air before it starts to thicken up, which is the whole point of using it, really. So I have to keep recharging the pen. This should give us a good start in terms of getting the, even though I'm sort of drawing it in, I'm not accurately necessarily following the lines that are there, because don't have to, do we? I think that will do it. And I'll let that dry, and while I let that dry, or shall I do the bottom in the same way? Yes, I think I will. I'll do the bit down here using the same method. Okay, it's as again, it's pretty well, for this country, it's pretty warm in my little studio here this morning. It's having said that, I had a couple of people yesterday online on Twitch who were in the USA, and one was in Kansas and one was in Seattle, and for one of them the temperature was 102, and for the other the temperature was 111, I think he said, which my goodness me, I just can't imagine that sort of temperature. So I just can't complain, can I, really? If it gets a bit warm and sweaty in here, I've just got to think of what it must be like for them over there in that heat. Having said that, I think you tend to find that in countries where you get a lot of heat, just like in countries where you get a lot of cold, you do tend to be much more prepared for it than we are over here. We are never prepared properly over here for the heat. Or for the cold, you know. It's the problem of living in a temperate climate. We don't get enough of it to make it worthwhile the government and the local authorities and everything actually investing in what is really needed for dealing with it. You know, air conditioning over here is still, it's just something that is alien to most people, and even the smallest apartment in America, in my experience from my short time that I spent there, has air conditioning. It's just essential. It's as essential as having a fire in the winter is for us over here. That's fine. Let's be been very naughty and wasn't using the paper yesterday at some of the times, and I've smudged a little bit of the pencil work that I've done over here. So let's just, before I start working on it with the pigment pen, let's take a minute or two to re-establish the lines so that I don't make a mistake with something that is irreversible, as pigment pens are. I don't know. I can't remember what these bits are called. Hackles, maybe, like they are with a bird. I don't know. But let's get the direction of flow of the black parts and the feathers established here. Shadow around there. It's very fine here. Now, I've already done this once, but there's nothing wrong with, at least if I re-establish in pencil first and make sure that I've got it right in pencil. There we go. It's, then when I start to put the pen lines on, we'll know they're in the right place, and we can rest easy. I don't think I've done a chicken before. I've done all sorts of strange creatures for people. I have done a oh, what was it called? A Komodo Dragon. I think that's one of the most challenging things I've ever been given to paint, actually. I don't think you can see it on that picture there. I've done a bird. I've done all sorts of things. Bear with me for one moment. You won't see what I'm doing for a minute. Just, you know, have a little look up there. No, I turned it off for you. Hold on, let's turn it back on. You look at that while I just key this up. You won't see this for a second. Where's my... There we go, let's see if that's coming up on your screen. have a little look. Let's go back to that. Bear with me, it will be, all will come clean. I think that's it. There we go. What you can see here is this is on my website. I've got lots and lots and lots of paintings for you to look at on my website if you care to go and look. And the ones that you can see here these are from the first series that I did, which I called I Paint Your Life, back in 2014, when I got people to send me photographs from their lives. And at that time I wasn't streaming like I am now. Of course now I'm streaming everything, but back in that time I would draw out the picture, I'd take a photograph, I'd put it online, I'd paint for a while, I'd take a photograph and put it online, and all that sort of thing. I mean, I'm doing that this time, I'm just streaming as well. And you can see from here the selection of different things that people sent me to paint. Everything that you can imagine people sent me. You can go onto my website, stevebirdartist.co.uk, click on I Paint Your Life, and you will be able to see these if you want to. But I was just saying, I got some very, for me, unusual subjects. I was expecting, landscapes with people in, portraits and that sort of thing. But I didn't expect to get that, which was quite a challenge for me. I'd never ever painted a bird before, even though it's my name. So it was quite a challenge, which I think I dealt with quite well. This was an unusual one, but a fantastic story behind this one. This was sent to me by a lady on Twitter who went by the handle of Sudo Art, and this is actually her. There she is. This is her sitting on a top of a rock. Now this rock, it so happened, is in Australia. So this was her sitting on top of a rock on Australia, and I was sitting in my studio in Cheshire, in England, painting it for her. And then I sent it to her. But she doesn't live in Australia. She lives in Alaska. So this painting got sent all the way to Alaska. So a picture of a portrait of a rock, really, more than anything. A picture of Sudo Art sitting on top of a rock in Australia, sent to her in Alaska. And I always thought that was a good story. Every one of these has got a story behind it. A lot of the time I don't know what that story is. It's very personal. This was very cute. I did an interview on local radio, on Radio Stoke, during the project, talking about it, which you can listen to. It's still on my website if you want to go and have a listen to it. But I did an interview, and after the interview, they gave me a piece of paper and they said somebody had rung into the radio station while I was chatting and wanted the details of it and everything. So I rang him back, and turns out he does weddings, and he wanted me to paint this car, which was named Rosie, which is one of the cars that he uses for doing weddings. Unfortunately, this photograph's coming up a little bit bleached out on my screen. I hope it's better for you. But he does weddings. And so I said, yeah, I'll paint it for you, no problem. Send me the photograph, blah, de blah, de blah. And I painted it. And he said, actually, I'd like to come and fetch it if I was you. I'd like to meet you. I said, okay, thank you very much. Okay, fine, no problem, come over. And he came over to the house. Him and his wife came over. Now, the reason I was doing the I Paint Your Life project in the first place, the first time, was to make the money for our wedding and our honeymoon. And that was the whole purpose of it. And I painted the painting, I gave him the painting, and he said to me, actually, we'd like to do something for you. And I said, well, okay, well, you just bought the painting. That's what I expect. That's great. And he said, no, we'll do the cars for your wedding for free. And I was absolutely gobsmacked. So on our wedding day, 2 of these beautiful vintage Morris Minors convertibles turned up with chauffeurs in full uniform. And they were our wedding cars. And one of the chauffeurs had driven back all the way from the south coast, which is about 200 miles from where we live, especially to drive the car for our wedding. And it just made it so special. And I don't know, some of these paintings they've got real special stories behind them. I always like this one, the fisherman with his fish. Actually, I really enjoy painting the fish. Turns out that fish and watercolour seem to go well together, strangely enough. But all sorts of different ones. This one I liked particularly because I've been there. Anybody watching in the USA, this is in New York. We're just around the corner from Radio City, from Radio City Music Hall, and I like this one. This was a particular challenge painting all the buildings here in the background. It's very different from all the things that I do. Here we are. This was another real challenge. This is probably one of the smallest portraits that I've ever had to do. This picture is 5 inches by 7 inches, so you can imagine how small this face is, but it's recognizable as him, and that's what matters. And it's one of the first vehicles that I really did, and I went on after that, of course, to paint loads and loads of cars and Volkswagens and vans and that sort of thing for people. So loads and loads and loads of different things. This was a lovely picture of a lady named Kimberly, who obviously you can tell by the outfit there, she went to her wedding on a beautiful white horse, which was another challenge, because you've got to paint something that is white in watercolour, and an awful lot of white. So that was another challenge. Lots and lots of different things, and that's what this project that I'm doing here is all about. It's about painting scenes from people's lives, painting things that matter to people, painting something that you'll put on your wall and it really will mean something to you, and it'll be a memory that you'll always treasure, and it will probably then stay in your family for generations. So that's what it's all about to me. So let's crack on. That masking fluid should be dry by now, and so we'll check. Yeah, it is. So we can go in there. Because I've done it in this method, because I've masked it in this way, we can now just go into that with a dark wash of Payne's Grey, which we could do straight away now, were it not for one simple thing. I've left my water in the kitchen. Back in a moment. There we go. much more prepared than this, honestly. Right. As I said before, I rudely left you alone for a moment to go and get some water. All we need to do here is paint in a nice dark, because it's very dark down here, and the markings on the chicken are very dark. So we're painting a nice dark thick coat of Payne's Grey all over the chicken, blending it in here with the shadow in the background, so that the chicken emerges from the background, taking care around the edge of the hand. I'm leaving the hands for the moment because I want to make sure that when I put the hands in, that I get the tones relating properly to the area around them. Let's just make sure it's just gone a little bit too far over there where the nails go in, so let's just take that out. I mean, the nails in shadow, it won't matter that much, but just lift it, and that's it, that's better. That's it. And the same down here, where again they're taking the time to reinforce the shadow area down here, make it even darker, because the chicken down here again emerges from the shadows. Take care around the fingers. Then check here where there's the second finger. This is shadow, deep shadow underneath the finger before we get the chicken's leg. That's it. That will tone fine. Then there's the other finger there. We can always lighten that end up as it emerges from the shadow just by dabbing out a little bit. That's that. I think I've gone a little bit too far there. It doesn't matter because this is Payne's Grey, and Payne's Grey has a wonderful quality to it, in that if you've gone a bit too far with it, you can get a just a little bit of water on your brush. I mean, it's a shadow area anyway. You can take it out, which is very useful. You don't have to scrub hard or anything like that with anything. Just a little bit of water and it'll lift out. I'll leave that bit there for the moment. Come back to that when I'm working on that area. This area though is that. This is the trousers. I'll damp that because then the trousers in their sort of browny greeniness emerge out of this. So let's leave that there for the minute. Work on this paint spray because it is a shadow that comes through, but it's not strong and there's certainly not a line. So I can work on that line with the brush here, just pushing into it and bring it in with the rest of the picture. We can take some more bluey shade here and bring that down here. And then as that dries, we'll work back into that with the paints. Add a little bit of ivory black to this particular shadow area here because it is sort of brownier, and then just work that across. Add some water to it so that it just works across there. And probably bring this now, the shadow into this area. It's actually fairly dark, don't need to dab it too much. And then there's another area here where we've got a crease that's fairly dark. Clean piece of kitchen roll. I've just realised you can't see what I'm doing. There we are. Move it up. How remiss of me. Do feel free to chat to me about anything. I am happy and able to chat away and talk while I paint. So if you're in the mood for a bit of conversation, you know, I'm here. Feel free. obviously I'm not, this is a watercolour painting, and I want it to look like a watercolour painting as it's finished. So I don't want it to, I'm not going to try and blend this in the same way that I would do if it was an oil painting. It's all right to see the sort of watercoloriness about the whole thing, while keeping a notion on the eye that it's fabric. At this dark area in here, probably with a little bit of ivory black mixed in, and then just let that take to the paper. That's better there. Now that's taken. Let's get some tiny touch of burnt umber here, and just drag that in there and let that area of shadow that we put on there, let that soften. Let's work a little bit of blue into that as well down there. That's it. Let's just take a little bit out there, keep it a bit highlight. Oh, I'm letting my cup of tea go cold over here. I made myself a cup of tea before I came in. Oh, that's better. I love this. Look at that. This is a green screen, you probably guessed, behind me. This is actually bright yellow. It's not green. But it's a good thing I'm not wearing a yellow shirt, because that is totally green screening. So it's very odd, and never mind. This is not technical perfection. This is me painting. Now that's the edge of the trousers, that's that line. Just make sure that you get everything in your head before you start putting the paint on. It's very easy to start painting over the top of somewhere that's totally wrong. That's it. That works well. Working wet in, wet here. And we can bring it down actually on the edge there. And then we can bring it without even taking any, that's it, without even putting it into the water. Let's go into this area here and add the this, which is nice and light actually. So let's texture it with the kitchen roll, and then work in the shadow area. that is just gentle. And a touch of the blue, because the blue does permeate into this area. That's it, leaving a highlight there, which I will dry brush into a smoother transition. So, that's it, so that's softer. We can come down here, we can soften this area. This line, there is a line, but it's not a hard one. We can get the brush and we can just get the dark. You see, my mind when I'm painting, you probably realise actually already, flits about a little bit, and I said, oh, I'm going to do the chicken, What did I do? I started on the back of the chicken. Next minute, I'm down here doing the trousers. That's just the way my mind works. And tinge here. That's that. But we are getting there. We are getting there. There we go. Now just at the edge of the sleeve, the actual painting has cropped a little bit more off the sleeve edge here than the actual photograph that I've got, but that's not a problem. There is some light blue here coming through from the background, which we'll put in here and here. And then we have a sort of rough browny, sort of slightly orangey, sort of, but knocked back with a little bit of pains. Oh, that's it. Very rarely use any of the paints in their raw state. I tend to always do something like, this is a brownie colour there, but that bit of, just that touch of Payne's grey mixed in with that burnt umber and burnt sienna, whatever, just knocks it back a little bit, just tones it in with the rest of the paper, rest of the painting. It's only the background, it doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. It's just there. That'll probably do, actually. The sleeves, as it comes down, that's going to be quite dark down here, so that will pull that together. We need to come along here, actually, with the dark panes where the chicken's foot emerges. I missed that. Let's get that in there. And now, of course, we'll need to let that need to let that dry before we try and take the masking fluid off, so we'll leave that for the moment. Maybe let's just maybe let's work on the chicken's foot as it emerges here. With maybe a little bit of yellow ochre. Good morning, Judith. Nice to see you there. Thank you very much. It's coming along, isn't it? It's a nice one to be given to do. I have to be perfectly 100% honest. Sometimes when people send me photographs to work from, I cringe because I think, how am I supposed to turn that into a nice painting? But then you get another one, like this one, comes along and you think, oh yeah, okay, that's giving me what I need. And it's a great opportunity to let the watercolour really come into its own. Let's darken that down in there. It definitely is. It's an excellent photograph to work from. When it arrived, well, actually, two different sort of feelings about it when it first arrived. One feeling was, that is an excellent photograph, wow. And the other feeling, of course, is, oh my God, that's an excellent photograph. How am I supposed to make that happen happily in watercolour? But that's part of the fun, isn't it? It's part of the fun. This is, if everything was just the same things over and over again, it'd get boring, wouldn't it? It would. I'll probably do. Okay. Let's do the bit around the chicken's head with the fine liner. Should be fine enough. It's quite fine. 03. I'm going to come down here with very tiny dots into just underneath the comb here. Comb, see, I know all the terms. This comes from having kept chickens. Strange creatures, chickens. Not as strange as ducks. Ducks are even stranger. I used to keep ducks as well as chickens, and they live together. They all sit together in a barn, in a little upper barn. And you'd let them out in the morning, and the chickens would come out And the first thing the chickens do when you let them out is just stop going mad trying to find food, trying to find places to feed. Universally, all of them, male, female, doesn't matter. Food, 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 food. Ducks, on the other hand, they're strange creatures. The females come out, food, 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 and they're looking for, searching all over the place to find food. The males come out, and that's a totally different question. The males come out, and it's an all-in orgy. Well, the drakes go around and just basically leap on anything in sight. And these poor ducks, they're just there and they're eating away, trying to get their food and trying to find food. And these drakes are leaping all over them. Right. It used to quite surprise me, I have to say. Now we can get a little bit thicker with the line as we come further away from the bird. That's it. It's really good working on a tablet because you can zoom in. Just give it a pinch to zoom thing and you can zoom in and you can see much more what you're trying to accomplish. See, this will go into this area at the back here will go into deep shadow, so there won't be as much of the white showing. And we can now come around and thicken up as we come out. In fact, I might change pens in a minute to a thicker pigment pen. Let's just get in the patterning. There's the comb, so this is shadow. Let's just mark it down as shadow. That edge will soften with the paint when I put the paint on. So where in the world are you then, Judith? Are you in the Midlands somewhere like Judith, other Judith is? Yesterday afternoon session was amazing. It was fantastic. They've got 3 people in different parts of the USA online at the same time. People in the UK, of course, and one in South Africa. So I think there's a certain magical quality about all this to me still, of people from all over the world watching little old me here in the British countryside, painting away. Oh, Leamington Spa. I vaguely know Leamington Spa. Nice place, Leamington Spa. My son, my eldest, Julian, was in at Warwick University for 3 years, and he lived in Leamington Spa. Went to visit him a couple of times. He lived in Leamington Spa while he was at uni. Very genteel sort of place, Leamington Spa. I always think it always seems very genteel. think we should change over at this point to the brush. In fact, I think maybe it might be worthwhile just putting in a little paint as a wash before we work over the top of it, because we don't want these lines to blur that much. And then we'll leave those white around there, see what happens. That'll dry before I do anything. Perhaps we should work on the chicken's head a little bit while we've got while that dries. Let's put in the colour of the beak, which starts down the bottom with a very pale yellowy colour, working our way up to the top where it's white, but with a touch of a blue up there, and do it a line between the beak, but I will have to let that dry before I put that in. The coxcomb, as it's called, even though this is a hen, still called a coxcomb. A nice warm rose doré, a lovely pink to start with. We'll deepen it down as we go. That's better. That there is light grey. I hadn't noticed that bit. A bit down there, around the bottom. This here, and then even paler as we come into the area around the eyes, working towards the comb. We'll let that dry, and we'll work a little bit more into that. Have another sip of my now rapidly going cold tea. Well, it should be cold enough now to... Cold enough? God, I mean, definitely cold enough because I'm talking through my hat. And it should be dry enough now to start putting in the markings on the chicken's back here, which we will do being as sort of precise as we can be without going over the board. The actual markings on the chicken are, to some degree, they're organised, but they are random as well, which is because of the way the feathers lay over one over the top of the other. So I'm not going to be over fussy as long as it looks right. It doesn't want to look like lines as much as speckles. This is a speckled hen, as they say, isn't it? And the pattern just tends to go up and down a bit. It's not straight lines. So I don't want to get it too it's smaller here. The pattern goes smaller as it gets up around the around the top of the head. Nearer to the head it goes, the more fine it gets, which is why I've done the head up there with the pigment pen rather than the and hopefully the shape of the marks as they come down will give the chicken some kind of three-dimensionality. Is that even a word? I don't know, but you know what I'm getting at. Indeed, what are you having for lunch? Something nice? I'm on my own at the moment, so lunch can wait a little bit. They've all gone out for coffee to celebrate James's A-level results. So as I went online late, lunch can wait. Now, as it comes round here, I'm going to change to an ivory black with a slight touch of the paints, just so it isn't, because the actual black on the chicken, even though it is the same in reality, is because of the light of this picture. The actual black of the chicken is sort of changes in nature very, very slightly as it goes around and becomes slightly brownier than the paint grade. This back here is giving, and so I just reflect that in the brush marks. That was a strange sound. Was that my phone that made that sound, or was that my computer that made that sound? Not heard that one before. As long as it doesn't mean you're just about to crash or anything, I don't think it does. An unusual bloopy sound. Boodle-doo. I'm aware that all these different platforms that I'm doing this on, everything works slightly differently, or depending on the platform that you're watching on and the platform that I'm streaming to. So having to get used to different actions and different things and different ways that people are viewing. I mean, on Facebook you will find people live streaming art, but you don't find many people live streaming art. As I discovered the other day, if you go on Twitch, it's totally different. People there there's people on there live streaming art constantly. So there's a lot more competition for the views, really, I suppose, on Twitch. Nice to experiment though. Right, well let's get a... I'm not actually going to need much in the way of colour, because the colour will come out of the Payne's Grey as I drag the brush over here. And then over here, but dab it out a little bit so that it goes lighter. That's it. And that way, just re-establish the darkness of these markings. It's better. Let's just make that look much more like paint and a lot less like pen. Get rid of that there, bring that round. It is grey. Chicken goes very much into the darkness here and the shadow of the jacket, and underneath here, as this comes down, the shadow of the jacket increases dramatically as we get close to the chicken. So let's take that down here, soften it. This is what I was saying yesterday, you can't just rely on, you know, oh that's it, I painted the jacket now, because we are constantly having to tweak and reference the picture in different ways. As other parts emerge, we're going to go back and just check on it, and maybe we need a little bit extra at this bit, at that bit, or whatever. That's it, that's good. Let's now take off the masking tape on the chicken's rear end. And on the bit down here. And as we can see, we've got the shape of the feathers there. We've got the darkness in, and we can get some water. We don't need much in the way of pigment because the pigment will come off the Payne's grey that's already there, and we'll take it and let it go, flecked. So that, and the same under here, and we've been careful to be a bit lighter with the touch because this is actually lighter in colour and lighter in tone than higher up. Dragging it downwards as I do it, because dragging it downwards will drag some of the pigment down, and hopefully it will look featherier, so to speak. It's working. Let's add a little bit more around here so that it emerges, whatever, blends. You've got to decide where you want sharp lines and where you don't. And if you want something to emerge from the shadows, you want it to be soft. Here it's hard, and I think we can now establish there's some blue, darker sort of creases in the fabric that, as we get down to the here, get darker. This is got to be softened as it comes into the green. It's coming. I have not put a great big brush mark on the middle of his forehead. That's a bit of masking fluid. It tends to fly all over the place, and reminds me I must put the lid back on the masking fluid. Pop that down there, and a swig. Tempted now to go for the hands, I think. Next. I don't know. I'm sort of saving the checks on the shirt to do, because I know the checks on the shirt are going to, if I do them right, are going to be splendid. With checks, there is always a pattern to work out as to what overlaps where, and because it overlaps it gives a darker blob, doesn't it? Now I do this. I said we're going to do the hands. Now I'm looking at the sleeves. I do this in a very particular way that makes it look as checky as I can make it. We're working with an undercolour that is a very pale sort of yellow, turn into a greeny yellow down the bottom, and we want to preserve that. So I think what we can do, the two blues are actually exactly the same, but it's just where the warp and the weft, if that is the right term, I think it's the right term, of the cloth goes, so that you've got the warp, which I think, if I remember rightly, are the lines that go across, done in a particular blue, as against the weft, which is going down in the same blue, but where they cross it goes darker. I've been here a while, Karen. I thought you would have been here before, but hey, you've not missed a huge amount. Well, actually, you missed the check-in. I've been working on the check-in, but great. You can always rewind when this is over and go back and watch it again. It will be available for you afterwards, just to go back if you want to go back and have a look at the way I did the check-in. I was just saying I was going to do the hands, and then I changed my mind and I started looking at the shirt. So the way I am going to do the shirt is the way that I've done checks before, is to mark out clearly which are the downward lights areas, and to establish them. So that's a light, that's a light, that's a dark, so this is a light coming here. But the light, actually, we're going to mask it. Yeah. Decisions. We're going to mask it coming round here. And then coming down the arm. So we'll mask the lights out coming down the arm there. That can be the, yeah, this can be the, here can be the main light line that's going to guide me down, and then we get to this part, which, if you reference over there, is where things change slightly. So then we're going to bring the light line over here, then it will disappear into this crack, and then down here it will be different, it'll emerge different. So that's the first light line that we want to save. Then we'll mark it, it's the next one is coming down here like that, which will give us 1, 2, which is 1, 2. So the third one is the one that comes down the middle. So that's this one. This, as you're going to see, is going to be a combination of masking and where's the line that's coming down there? It's coming down here. Of masking and then painting over. So we'll clarify these lines. We'll put a wash on, an underwash of a yellowy ochre sort of thing. We'll let that dry. Hold on, so that's light. You have to be careful here. That's light, that's light, that's light. So that's light, that's light, that's light. This is light here into a shadow down here. Put the shadow in. You've got to give yourself what I would call mapping points, I suppose, so that you can actually, this is quite a complicated thing to follow and you don't want to go off because otherwise it won't look right. So you've got to take time and establish what I would call mapping points. So let's mark that there. Mark that there. These are shadows. The paint will go over them, not to worry, it's going to be dark paint. That's it. So we want to be able to see that's light, 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 light here. So that's one line, two line. One line, two line. Oh, this isn't right. This is wrong. Excuse me, I'm doing maths. One line, two line, three line, four line. One line, two line, three line. Four line. That's where the highlight area is coming down, and then it goes around here into that shadow. So we've now got 4 lines light going up to here. So then there's a blue and just a little bit of a light area there. That's right. Hear me talking out loud, counting lines and doing maths. It's not exactly exciting for you, I know, but so I've got a light there, a light that comes in and gets narrow there, like there. But actually what matters is where it comes down here. So we have a light at the top, then a dark, then a light. That's it. then a dark, then a light. These disappear into the shadows eventually, so they're not over as important. And then that's it. So this light, dark, light. So then this light comes round the bend, and this light comes round the curve there. So that's a light, that's a light, that's a light, and then there's there. All goes a bit crinkly at this point. There is the line all the way down here. It wants to be really fine, and then there's really just one that emerges out of the shadows here and runs down for a little while before it disappears back into the shadow again, only to emerge down here. So I think that we've got that established there. I'm going to mask this up in a minute. This is going to be very boring, I'm afraid. This is going to be very boring for a little while, I suppose, with me just mumbling away here in the background. Now, I've not drawn them in here. I don't know why I've not drawn them in advance, so we can actually just draw them in now. Let's move it up on my... Let's start with the cough. We have a light. We have a dark. So a light, a dark, a light, there is a line where things change slightly, comes around here, but on this line we have, coming out of the dark here, we have a light, comes around the corner, we have a dark, we have a light, we have, so we have a light, we have a dark, we have a light, we have a dark going in and coming out. We have a light, we have a light. Now we want to only, because we're only going to have one band dark, one band light, one band dark. Establishing that light, it's coming across there, and coming across there, and coming down there. So that'll be a saved line. And then this can be then coming around here, lights. So if that's a light, that's a dark, that's a light, that's a dark, that's a light. Suppose I can work it out afterwards actually. Let's take it up here. It's going to be where it is actually. This is a bit wobbly here as it goes through the folds, so we don't have to worry too much. And then here is a shadow in the crease. Somebody asked me the other day in one of the comment sections on one of the paintings I was working on, and says, are these traced? I didn't answer. I don't answer that question in an open forum usually, because I did once, and suddenly I had two women artists on Facebook ganging up on me, being totally purist, as if tracing something is like absolutely disgusting, and making out, really I think what they're making out is they're saying, well, you're fake because you can't draw, that's why you're tracing. And which gets me, to be perfectly honest, because I can draw perfectly well. I am just trying to make these go against the clock. I'm trying to make sure that they are perfect for the client. Nobody wants something that's imperfect. And as you can see here, you know, what I'm doing here, yes, I've traced this, but what I'm doing here is I'm having to look at the drawing again and work out where all these checkers are going. And how I'm going to actually make this look like check shirt, which involves calculation and drawing and looking. But if you can get a little bit of help in your process, I say take it, because there we are. I'm not a purist. Now, believe it or not, I now sort of know what I'm looking at and what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do first and foremost is I'm going to get a very light wash, because this shirt is not blue and white, it's blue and sort of yellowy but very pale. So I'm just going to take a light wash. No, I'm not. I'm going to do one thing before I do that. And that is, I'm going to get a little bit of masking fluid. I want a very fine line here, so the liner here is on its tightest setting. This is as tight as it can go, and I'm going to just go down here, because here, going right from up there to down here, there is a highlight that is lighter than everything else, and I'm going to put that in first and foremost before I put any colour on whatsoever. And then there's another one around the top of the sleeve there. So I'm going to, and I think I'll maybe actually just round the sleeve a bit further down here. Just clean that out. Mark this out where it's going to be a little bit lighter. There we go. That's fine. And then I'm now going to let that dry for a second, and I'm just going to put, then I'm going to put a wash of a knocked back. When I say knocked back, what I'm talking about is I've got a particular colour that I take out of off the palette. So in this case, a yellow ochre, a very light wash of yellow ochre, because I don't want it to be very strong, and I want it to retain its transparency. And then I will add a little a dark colour, either a Payne's grey or maybe a burnt umber, maybe an ivory black, but I will add just a touch of it, just to grey it down, knock it back basically in tone. And that's what we've got here, because most of this painting is in sort of greyed out greens, dusty greyed out greens, which is what makes the face and the hands zing out at you, and so that we're painting in shades of green, I suppose, but they're not bright greens. They're almost what I would say shades of grey, for want of a what has now become a cliche. We are painting in 50 Shades of Grey, only without all the hoo-ha. So I'm just letting that dry there before I put the wash on, and I'll put the wash on, and I'm just going to disappear into the house just for 2 minutes, and then, but don't go anywhere, because I will be back very, very quickly. I think that's dry now. Yeah, it's only a very, very fine line. Remember, never start painting on over the masking fluid until it is dry. because you'll get problems. You'll get masking fluid in your brushes, and that's the last thing you want. So what we're putting in here is basically the yellowy sort of colour that is in the shirt, which is very pale. So we don't have to, we really don't want much paint in it. It's more water than it is anything else. And that's one thing that people don't get when they start painting in watercolor. That some reason they forget the words watercolor, and they basically add too much pigment all the time to everything they're doing. And so you're not painting with the water in the watercolor, which is what you want to be doing. You're painting with pigment with a little bit of water added to it, which is no good to anybody. Right, I've got the same here, only, oops, that one's knocking back quite a bit. Only this side is much darker, so I'm putting it on a bit heavier, but I'm still dabbing it because I still want it to be muted. But that's much more the colour that is in the background of the shaded side. There is a little bit of a highlight there, so around there somewhere. So let's just pull that out. We can work on that after. We can always dab that a little bit, just a tiny touch of white there, just to make it up at the end. And that puts me in a position to be able to start putting the masking fluid on when it's dry, which will to be in a couple of minutes, ready to put in the beginnings of the checks on the shirt. I shall now disappear into the house for just 2 minutes. I will be back. Don't go anywhere. with you. Right, sorry about that pause. Let's get back in there. And I've still forgotten something. Honestly, what am I like? Okie dokie, let's get back to work. Right, so what you saw me do before was I've just overdrawn the sleeves so I can actually work out which areas are going to be the light areas and which areas are going to be the blue areas. And what I'm going to do now, having put a light wash underneath, I am eating at the same time, which is why I haven't put myself back on the screen. You'll have to excuse me. I will appear again in a moment when I've eaten this thing. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a line of masking where the light lines go. Now you might say, oh, the light lines go in both directions. In reality, they don't. In reality, the light lines go in one direction, and so do the blue lines, and then both of them are crossed by another blue line. And that's the way it should work. That's the way the textile is made. And so we try and copy the way the textile is made with our paint. I suppose I did actually study textile design at A level. We are going back many moons, but I suppose that sort of thing helps when you're dealing with these fabrics. Even though you can't see me or the chat on the screen, I can actually still see the chat box at the side if anybody is actually wanting to ask anything, or anybody's wanting to talk to me. Oh, hold on. Let's go back to. There we go. Now you can see me and you can see the screen. Let's just tilt that down a little bit. That's better. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in the lines of light paint. So first of all, I've got to work out which ones are the lines, are the light lines. So what we have going across is that 1, 2, it's 1, 2, 3. I don't want to get this wrong. Have to bear with me for a minute while I work this out. This one, it's got to be a light. Yeah, it's got to be this one. So we're just putting in a line of masking fluid where the light line is going to be. And that means that this here, the fact of the matter is, if these went in the wrong order, as long as it made a check, it wouldn't make that much difference in the end, because this is going to be a painting hanging on a wall, and it's not going to have the photograph hanging next to it, hopefully, because it needs to exist in its own right as a painting. So that's right. We have to give it the opportunity to exist on its own when it's done. So as long as it's checks, it won't really matter that much. But I like to try and get it right. There. Then a blue, and then this is in the darkness. You don't see this one as much, but we'll pop it in there. Now over the shoulder, we are coming light, 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 light. Some of these will disappear into the shadow, so I'm not over worried there. And there's, from the edge there, this and there, this is light. So there is a blue right at the edge, which we'll have to furk in. We'll bring that light one down here as well, which it will also disappear into the shadows actually, so it doesn't matter too much. Now this one came down there and went into there, so we're going to come out there and we're going to come across there. I'll sort that out after, which will give me a one there, one there. I'm not talking too much during this bit because I don't want to get it wrong, otherwise we won't get a proper check. Okay, getting there. That's that side done. Now being careful not to put my hand in the masking tape over, on the masking fluid over there. We can come down and we can do the same thing on the dark sleeve. Now the very outer line on the dark sleeve is the light. Goes in there, and this bit goes from there. So the next line is this baby, which will come up and go there. Changes direction a little bit because of the shoulder. It's my tablet just gone dark. There we go. So that's got two lines in. The other lines down here are very much in the dark, but we'll put them in because this will establish where they are, and then we'll darken them down afterwards. And when you come up to the shoulder here, we're getting them coming in, and there's some masking fluid left in the pen. Hope that's right. It looks right. Looks right to me. Close enough for jazz, as they say. And that, Watson, is that. Just give that a moment to dry. On this right hand side it should be fairly dry fairly quickly, and then we'll put in a wash over the top of that of the first blue, which is actually a greyed blue again. You know, this is the thing, we are working with shades of grey. They're coming out blue and green, but they're greys really. Don't know whether you're familiar with the works of Wickett. I was just going to say Whistler and Sickert. I've suddenly invented a new artist called Wickett. Of Whistler or Sickert, and both of whom back in the late 19th century were working with greys, shades of grey, and creating these amazingly beautiful paintings, just working with shades of grey. But grey isn't just, when we're artists and we're talking about grey, we're not just talking about grey in the terms of, you know, white and black mixed, or a thin black mixed, or whatever. We're talking about colours that have been greyed down, knocked back, as I keep saying. Quite often you will take if we're going to get technical, quite often what you'll do is you will take a colour and you will add some of the complementary colour, which is the colour on the opposite side of the colour circle, to it. And by doing that, you will take it down in hue. You will start to sort of knock it down. And I'll do the same thing in this. A lot I add Payne's grey to a lot of the colours. Even the yellow has had a touch of Payne's grey added to it, or maybe a touch of ultramarine, or maybe a touch of burnt burnt umber, just something to pull it down so that it's not zinging out at you, because you don't want this to zing out. You want it to be, you want it to all tone together. You want it to, when it's finished, you want it to actually sort of all tone together, just a little bit down there, which I think actually is dry. It's just got the light shining on it. So let's do this. This colour in these sleeves, I am going to mix a lighter mix of Payne's Grey with a touch of French Ultramarine, just to give it a little bluiness there. Let's just test that on a, not bad. I think maybe it can go a little lighter. Don't know, is this, are we dry yet? No, we're not quite dry over that side yet. That will be okay. I think that will be okay. Maybe a little bit more water. And what we're going to do is we're going to get it, and we're going to get this sleeve, and we're going to put it over the whole sleeve. And as we do that, what you'll see is that what we're actually doing is we're putting in the blue stripes of the check. Can go a bit darker in here. I actually should have gone in there with a bit. See, this is the thing, you miss a bit, but I can sort that out. With this being Payne's Grey, it's very, very forgiving in that sense that I don't want it to be too dark here. Let's lighten it up. It's very forgiving in the sense that I can go in here and just with a wet brush just take out, well, actually be easier if I take out this whole line, as if I've masked it. It is in the shadow, so it's not as light as everywhere else anyway. And it will seem lighter anyway, because this bit next to it is going to go a lot darker because there's a shadow there. So this is me doing a little bit of correction on the run here. See, even I am fallible. So you won't break my concentration. Don't worry about it at all. I am totally. I'm just as likely to make a mistake when I'm talking to you as when I'm being quiet. There we are. That's fine. That'll work that out. Going to come out of a deep shadow anyway. So let's not worry about that. So that's got the first blue thing in there. Maybe it wants to be a little bit bluer. Let's get a gentle wash of ultramarine over the top of that, just to blue it a little bit more. That's alright. It's made a strange noise then. I don't know what that was. Sometimes these computers and things make noises that you've no idea what they're doing. Let's just, yeah, just soften it. Knock it back a little bit there. Don't want it to be too. What is that noise? Hold on. Don't worry, whatever it is, it's not important. Now let's take the same colour, only sort of deepen it by adding a little bit more pigment. My computer is making the strangest noises. Hopefully it's not going to say, I am going to shut down and do a Windows update, and you don't know it's happening in the background. These things happen. But I've just realised what it is. I've just disappeared off the screen. My main camera has just done something odd. Well, you can live without my picture on the screen for a while that sorts itself out, can't you? It could be that it's very odd. I'll have a look at it in a minute, but it doesn't matter, because what matters is that you are concentrating on what we're doing here, aren't we? That's what matters. Let's put it down. Let's just take some of the. It will be darker, but we don't want it to be too dark. Now we'll let that dry. Oh, hold on. Not forgetting to come under here. In the Shadowlands. On the bottom there. Let's just do that, and then just a bit more demarcation there. Right, we'll let that dry for a moment. And then when that's dry, we'll take off the masking fluid and we'll put in the blue lines going the other direction, which should work. I'm just going to have a look at what this baby is doing, because it's for some reason it's rebooting. I think it might be getting a little bit hot. No, it needs charging, that's what it is. This one, I am running this whole shebang on a shoestring. And part of that is what I'm using as cameras are all mobile phones. And this particular one, for some reason, this one's alright, the one overhead is okay, because that is charging, that is charging up off the computer fine. But this particular other one, that's having much more problems. Not to worry, but if I am going to break for a little while after I've done this. So we will then pardon me, set that away. There we are. It'll be charged up enough to do the final session. Because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the checks, aren't I? So we're probably okay to take that off. I think we'll have to put a little bit more colour in those yellows before we go any further, because what seemed fine before we put the blue on is not as fine as I would like it to be. It needs to be greener than in the stripes, and we need to also take, that's too green. A lot of the time you can't, it's difficult to tell until you actually get the contrasting colour against it as to whether you're too light or whether you're too dark or whatever. So these want to be darker. A lot darker in here anyway, we always knew they would do. We always knew they would be. And this highlight will need working into to soften it. As well this one down here, because it's not just a white line, it will have to be sorted out. As we work this in, we'll sharpen up those lines that the masking tape has left a bit jagged, as we always have to do when we use masking tape. We can now take off this side and again we're going to have to knock back those greens. Just a bit of masking tape there, that doesn't want, masking fluid there, that doesn't want to come off. And that's it. And then again we're going to have to knock back these greens, only this time we're going to have to knock them down a lot more, because this is the shadow side. Let's add a little bit of blue to that, because we want them to be very much in the shallows. Shallows. Lady Gaga reference. Okay. And they're going to emerge from here anyway, because this is dark shadow. Right, let's just thin that down a little bit, that bluey right there, and just start to neaten up these blue stripes, coming in much further to this highlight than we were. That one is too wet still for that to work. Maybe I'm being a bit trying to speed it up a little bit. I have to be careful of doing this. I don't want it to go darker. I just want to sharpen up the edge. So that it's not so rough. Masking fluid is wonderful stuff, but it is working on paper that has a tooth, so it will always give a bit of a jagged edge no matter how sharp you try and make it. But we won't worry about that because we can touch it up and nobody will ever know. Let's just take that down. This is in the darkness. We're getting there. We can work on knocking things back into shadows. Now I've just realised I'm doing the typical English language thing of using one term again and again to mean different things. I just said knocking back, didn't I? Knock it back into the shadows. And keep talking about knocking colours back. I suppose it's a similar sort of thing, really. What I'm saying is I'm darkening them. I suppose that's what I'm saying. But I'm darkening them in a particular way. These ones aren't as bad, and they're in the dark anyway. There we go. So at the moment he's got a stripy shirt on. We don't want that, of course. We want him to have a checky shirt on. So we will work on that. It went very, very well, thank you, Karen. He's done excellent. He's got exactly what he needed to get into Warwick University to study maths, which it's he needed quite high marks, and he's got that. He did maths, further maths, computer science, and he also took what they call the STEP, which is a Cambridge University exam in maths, which is really, really hard, and he had to get in to Warwick University to do maths. He had to get A star, A, and pass the step with the level 2, and that's exactly what he got. He got A star, A star, A, and he passed the step. So he is in, and so for the next 3 years he will be an undergraduate at Warwick University, which is lovely. Oh, that's a totally other question. I haven't got the foggiest idea what he wants to do with his maths studies. That's a totally different question there to be answered, Karen. Who knows at that age? I didn't know. And I knew what you see. I'm a strange fish when it comes to education, because I was absolutely rubbish at education when I was young. I totally lost interest at school in everything that we were doing, and I didn't work anywhere near as hard as I could have done. I got lousy results in my GCSEs and in my A levels, but I discovered what I wanted to do early on. First I thought I wanted to be an artist, and so all I did was art. Went to sixth form, which I think you probably call high school, I don't know, to do mainly arts, and I did art and textile design and everything. But while I was there I also did drama, and I was in the drama society and all that sort of thing, and I got bitten totally by the theatre bug, and then all I wanted to do was act and theatre stuff and direct and all that sort of thing. And so I totally lost interest in anything academic, put my heart into the theatre and went that way. So I quit college. I was doing drama and art at college. Quit college because I could get a theatre job, got a theatre job, and did that for 10 years. Hi there, Fire Jockey. Nice to see you again. I think we're okay. As you can see, I'm working on the stripes now, on the checks, on the checky shirt, and we're just about to start putting them in. Yeah, so what I did is I worked in the theatre for 10 years, never went on stage, ended up just working in stage management and different management roles and everything. I was a technical manager, I was an assistant theatre manager, I did all sorts of things. But when I gave all that up, when I started to paint again in the 80s and went back to painting, I did that for a while. Then I got into music big time, and that was when I started singing and playing guitar and writing songs and all that sort of thing. Had bands and duos and gigging around the place. And then eventually I got to a point where I decided I wanted to go back into education. And I decided I wanted to go back, and then as a mature student I was so much better than I was when I was young, and I was a grade demon as a mature student. I desperately, all I cared about was getting top grades. I didn't care about anything else. And so I went to college, then I went to university, and I spent 12 years back in education. And enjoyed every second of it, and did so much better than I could have done when I was young. Really did work at it like mad. And spent 12 years back at it, did an undergraduate degree, went straight on, did a master's, and then stayed there and did a PhD, all in music technology, with the aim to be a lecturer. That's what I wanted to do. However, life has other plans at times, and I think mainly because I'm no spring chicken, I found it very difficult to get a permanent lecturing post. I've done, a module here or there, and I've enjoyed doing it, but I've found it very difficult to get a permanent post. So here I am back at the easel, which I enjoy. It's nice, but it's very, very difficult to make any kind of living out of it. So it has its ups and downs. Hopefully, this is starting to look like a checked shirt. Take that in the background, take that into a deeper shadow there. Take that, make that shadow deeper up here. Make this sort of emerge here, put a it's I work very hard for it, and I do use it. I use the doctor on. I think to myself, look, I worked for this. I am Dr. Steve Bird, and I'm gonna bloody use it. And it tell you what, for some reason, people treat you differently when you use it. They when you're having difficulties on, say, a phone call to customer service or whatever. When you say, and they say your name, and you say Dr. Stephen Bird, and they start calling you Dr. Bird, it puts them on the back foot, which I rather like. But a custom architectural design. So you work with art all the time, in a commercial sense. Hold on, I missed some up here. That was what did you write there, Fire Jockey User? Ah, going into the theatre and you're playing guitar. There you go. There you go. Go for it. That's what I say, mate. I say go for it. Do you know, I don't know whether... I've realised that when I'm talking to people from Twitch, because everybody uses a handle, I don't know whether I'm talking to a male or a female or whatever. Which are you, Fire Jockey? How can I relate to you in some way as to imagining who I'm talking to? It's got one sleeve in. Now do the same down the other side. We've got to knock these back under here so that they're actually just nestling in the shadows. I'll put one there. "17-year-old junior in high school, been there just a few weeks ago." Well, that's what it seems like. This getting older lark is weird actually, because I must say that inside I still feel like a 17-year-old in high school. I really do. I don't actually feel hardly any different than I did then in many ways. I look in the mirror sometimes and I think, who the hell's that? Right, 17-year-old guy in high school. I can totally, absolutely remember what that was like. Actually, I had a wonder. When I was 17, I went to what we call in this country what we called a sixth form college, and it was one of the first sixth form colleges. So that you didn't stay on at school, you left school, and you went to the sixth form college, and it was in the 1970s. So that gives you some idea of how old I am. And it was a wonderful time. It was one of the best times of my life. I absolutely loved it. I was doing all the theatre stuff and everything, and because of that I had a huge group of friends, and we all worked very well together, and we did all sorts of things. We played music and we sang and we did plays and we did all sorts of things. We'd just meet up all the time, and it was a fantastic time of life. I absolutely loved it, and I was so glad it was so different from school. oh, this is complicated. Design concepts is the art part. Producing the plans requires a lot of math. And you'll have, well, you know, I bet it does. You've got to get those measurements right, haven't you? Otherwise, you will cause absolute chaos. I remember back when I was working at the Torch Theatre in Milford Haven. It's in the furthest tip of, if you look at the map, if you look at the furthest tip of South Wales, that's where Milford Haven is. And Milford Haven had still has a lovely theatre there, even though at that time you would go 70 miles before you'd find another theatre, so it had a big catchment area, as we call it. But it was a great place to work, and we did very complex shows and very complex sort of repertoire, and we did in the summer that the year that I was there, we did this thing where we had 2 plays going, and so that we could change over quickly between the 2 plays, one of which was Dracula, with very complex sets with scenery that trucked on and off, and staircases and all this sort of thing, and big high archways and that sort of thing. And the other, which was an Alan Ayckbourn play called Absent Friends, very much a domestic comedy, which mostly took place in this one room, in this living room, with a little archway off in the back taking you through to the outside. And we the sets were made downstairs underneath the stage, and then we had a big lift at the front of the stage we could bring them up on to change over. And so there was not much height downstairs, so all the sets, all the flats and everything that made the sets were all made by the carpenter horizontally, because there was nowhere he could stand them up. And we came on what they call the fit up, which is the first time you actually bring the set up from downstairs and set it up. We've been running Dracula for a couple of weeks, and it was time to change over. And the set for Absent Friends was made to fit inside the set of Dracula. So it was designed to basically, so we didn't have to take the Dracula set down, take it away, that it would fit in and it can be built within the same set. And that's it. Anyway, we bought the setup from downstairs for the first time, all these flats, and we started to string them all together and build this set on the inside. And we've been doing it for a couple of hours, I suppose, and we got quite a lot of the set up and erect. And then somebody sitting in the auditorium was sitting there looking over and said, "Has nobody noticed yet that the doors are 9 foot high?" And we all looked at one another, and we all went out into the auditorium and turned around and looked at the stage, and all the doors were 9 feet high, and all the set was totally out of proportion. And what had happened was that the designer, Sheila, wonderful designer, wonderful woman, but she had mistakenly, when she was actually designing the set before it went to the carpenter, she had mistakenly used the wrong side of the scale ruler when she was drawing out the plans. So the carpenter had read exactly what she'd written and built it exactly how she designed it. Unfortunately, that meant that everything was all out of proportion and everything was wrong. The maths were wrong and we then had to work like mad, all of us, closing in the tops of these doorways and bringing the doorways down and making them less wide and redesigning, putting windows above doors and all sorts of things just to make up for the fact that it was wrong. And we all had to work like mad to get it right, because in the next day there was going to be a technical rehearsal, and then we'd go into dress rehearsals, and in 2 days' time we'd open to the public. So it was all hands on deck to put it all right, which was a feat in itself. But I remember it very well, that feeling of going out into the auditorium and looking out and going, what? What's happened? What? Oh, you know, ex-theatre people have got lots and lots of funny stories, and we do love to tell them, so be careful. Don't start me. Mind you, better start me on that than start me on something like Brexit or COVID. Dare start to get political, and you don't want to hear that. We're getting there. Whew. I'm happy with that. So what's the verdict on the shirt? Come on, round of applause. I think that deserves a round of applause. That's and all the time listening to Steve's theatre stories. So let's knock that down a bit, knock that back a bit. There we go. I do enjoy doing checks. They are so rewarding and so lovely to do. When you said you don't have to do the checks, I thought, no way, I'm not doing the checks. The checks are fun. What's the time? Oh, it's 10 to 3. And I started off at 10 to 12, so I've been at this for 3 hours now. It's time to take a break, give the old body a bit more exercise, and go and get some lunch. And I will aim to be back here later on. Probably a couple of hours time, actually. I'll probably take a bit of a break. And then come back and do the hands, and then sort out the face and get the shadow right on this side, get the hair blending better, because at the moment the hair looks as if it's just stuck on. We don't want that. And get the hair blending better than it is. But that's where it is so far. Thank you very, very much for being here, and you know, it's not that late for you, is it? What's about 10 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock in the morning, something like that. It's certainly I think this is going to be one of the best I Paint Your Life paintings that I have ever painted. I really like this one, and I really enjoy doing it, and I think this could be one one of the best. It would be nice if this encouraged more people to send me pictures, and if that encouraged people to send me pictures that they would like to buy, importantly, because I can't survive on fresh air, and at the moment I am. So, fingers crossed. This is now ready to be photographed. What we got here? Okay, peeps, I'm off. I'll see you all in a couple of hours.